Hotep, Alafia, Kamusta. Welcome to the Mind of Ro page. I am Faju Junde Obajaguna. Today I'm going to make a video on how to keep a cool head during hot situations. So the last video I made was on an Arumala meditation. If you like meditations and you like Orisha, go ahead and go check out that video and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I also have a TikTok and an Instagram and a Twitter at Mind of Ro, and I also have a Facebook business page at The Mind of Ro where I do readings. So if you would like to get a reading done, go ahead and shoot me a comment or a message and set an appointment up with me so I could do a reading for you. So, how to keep a cool head during hot situations. Trust me, I am a hothead myself. I have a history of losing my temper, but since I've been doing a lot of healing work, I'm a lot more cool-headed than I used to be. And I've been doing a lot of mindfulness and spiritual work to help me cope through times when I'm feeling very hot-headed. So I'm going to share my experiences with you guys and let you know what I've done and kind of things that I've realized about myself to help me during these situations. Of course, we can't be perfect, you know, it's going to happen sometimes, but I'm just going to kind of let you know my personal experience. So examples are kind of like going through arguments. Sometimes it's kind of, you know, it's really hard, especially the more emotions you have for somebody, you have feelings for somebody, the harder it is to keep a cool head when there's emotions and feelings involved. But the more you love the person, the more you're going to care, and the more easy it's going to be for you to be hot-headed during arguments. Also, there's a lot of worldly issues and government issues going on, and it's typically normal right now to feel really hot-headed and angry about all the crap that's going on, especially when we know we're being lied to and they're not making the choices that we want them to make and all this and that, and we don't want to live in a world of chaos and stuff, so we get pretty hot-headed. So these are just some examples, you know, of situations when we're feeling confused or about life and which way to go, and we tend to get really stressed out. A lot of stuff is going on and we get really hot-headed when it actually ends up making our situation worse. So the first step to keeping a cool head during a hot situation is, number one, you gotta admit that you're hot-headed. If you're arguing a lot with people on a regular basis, then it's probably because you're hot-headed. I'm not saying that you can't or you shouldn't be sticking up for yourself, but if you get in arguments with people often, or you get irritated with people often, or you're angry often, then you really just need to admit that you're a hot-headed person, and it's time to learn to control it. Because if we don't even realize that we're hot-headed and we don't admit that we're hot-headed, then it's going to be a little harder to stop it if we don't even realize we're hot-headed in the first place. But if you're watching this, most likely you know you're a little hot-headed and you need to stop being hot-headed. And especially as myself, I get people who just straight up tell me I'm hot-headed or I'm a firecracker. So if you have people telling you stuff like that, obviously that's what you are. So of course, key number one or step number one is admitting we got an issue and we need to work on it. So number two would be to admit what has it done for you. Like, honestly, it's easier to put more effort into changing something if we actually look at ourselves and realize why we need to change it. So when we start to admit to ourselves what are the things that's happened in our life when we were hot-headed that has actually ended up sabotaging us, making us look really bad or making us look really messy or sloppy, especially in front of people that we may look up to, or maybe somebody that you love, or maybe somebody that's supposed to look up to you, like children, for example, or maybe even somebody that you had feelings for and emotions for and you embarrassed yourself. So to change it, we really need to look back and say, what have I destroyed in my life because of my hot head? I'm not saying to sit here and beat yourself up, because that's not good. We want to heal and see the best in ourselves. But the best way to finally file it in our brain that we need to change it is really admitting to ourselves what has it done in those times when we did lose our temper, when we did get hot-headed, when we did get argumentative, when we did scream, and we did yell, and we did throw fits? Honestly, what has it done? Has it ruined your relationship? Has it ruined your reputation? Has it embarrassed you? Have you ended up going through losses? Have you lost a job because of it? Have you got kicked out of a home because of it? These are things we need to really admit to ourselves about what it has done in our life, so we could really not be proud of it, because the next step is actually it's gonna be with the last comment I said, because the reason why we keep doing it too is we have this subconscious belief that we should still keep doing it, because if we did not have a subconscious belief, then we wouldn't be doing it. And so for us to be able to change that, we not only need to it's kind of like self-hypnosis. I practice hypnosis as well. And according to hypnosis, what you want to do, if you want to hypnotize yourself to do something new, you first have to remove the false belief that contradicts your new belief, or the new affirmation or the new suggestion actually won't work. So for those of you who are watching this and you like to do affirmations and you feel like you keep repeating affirmations and they're not working for you, the reason why stuff like that doesn't work sometimes is not because you're really doing it wrong or you're not doing it enough. A lot of times, well, maybe it is, but a lot of times it's because it's going against a false belief you already have filed in your brain cabinet prior to saying that affirmation, or your new belief that you want yourself to have. So if you believe that throwing a fit or getting angry and yelling gives you power subconsciously, then when you try to tell yourself, I need to stop doing this, your subconscious mind is actually going to have way more power than your conscious mind, because a good majority of our actions is actually controlled by our subconscious mind. 80 to 85% of the actions that we make in life is actually more on autopilot and controlled by our shadow self and controlled by our subconscious mind more than it is controlled by our conscious mind, which is the mind that tells us, no, I don't want to do this, but then you do it anyways. That's because your conscious mind is arguing with your subconscious mind. So to keep that from happening, you have to actually evaluate yourself and practice mindfulness and really ask, what are the false beliefs that you wrapped around the concept of why you're hot-headed in the first place? I had to evaluate that. I was taught as a child, my mother used to always yell at me all the time and scream at me. So I figured, well, my mom did it, then it works for her, then it must be okay for me to do it. Or I hang out with other people who do it in their relationships and it seems normal, so I guess what's wrong with me doing it? Or I watched a reality TV and everybody on that show is acting real sloppy and messy and it seems to be cool and everyone's entertained by it. So then you process this information in your brain and you're actually filing it in your head to think that it's normal and it's okay and it's cool, or it's just how we handle things because other people are doing it for whatever reason, or because you may have convinced yourself that it's worked in the past somehow, some way. Even though you consciously know it really hasn't been working for you, because you know it's really been messing up your relationships. But for some reason, we tend to tell ourselves it did work. Or we'll tell ourselves, I like the way it feels. I like the way it feels to cuss someone out. I like the way it feels to yell and scream and throw things and act crazy, because I feel like it's releasing something. It feels good to me, and that's why I do it. Therefore, I don't want to stop. These are things we need to admit to ourselves on why we keep doing it, because we convinced ourselves that it feels good to us. If it feels good to you, it's because something needs to be released. Not exactly in that way or on that person, but it's something that needs to be released. So it's not technically the anger that's making you feel good. It's not the action that's making you feel good. It's the release that's making you feel good. And then afterward, you're like, I broke everything up in his house. I broke everything up in my parents' house, or I broke everything up in my house when I should have broke everything at that person's house, or and you regret it later on. Then we're like, dang, I said way too much stuff I shouldn't have said. Now that person's pissed, and now I want to make up for it. It's too late. And a lot of times we burn bridges by acting that way, and it's too late. We can't. Sometimes some people will allow you back if they're a little toxic themselves, you know. And then that's when we get into toxic, codependent relationships. Well, this person's still going to come back and love me even while I'm toxic. And a person who's going to do that is going to be another toxic person. And then we get into the cycle of yelling and screaming, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we keep going through this. So when you feel like it feels good to you, this takes a lot of shadow work. I shared a meditation video on my YouTube channel. Please check it out, because it's your shadow self that wants to come out and be released, and that's basically what it is, because you got triggered. This will help with that. If you do shadow work and you do the meditation and you study shadow work and learning to work with your shadow self, these outbursts of feeling good when you're screaming and yelling will actually help release that in a more productive way, so it doesn't feel good to you anymore. And I'm going to go on to some more healing techniques in this video. So the more you heal, the less it feels good. I remember back in the day when I used to be real sloppy and real messy person. I was tore up from the floor up, and I love to argue, and I'm great at arguing. But now, since I've done a lot of healing, I can't handle it. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with the energy. When you're sitting in really light energy for a while, when you do go back to that, it doesn't feel good anymore, because you start to convince yourself that something else feels better, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like a self-hypnosis, when you convince yourself and tell yourself to believe this feels good and that doesn't feel good. So we have to switch our mindset of what really does feel good and what doesn't feel good. So number 3 is based off false beliefs. We need to stop telling ourselves that we believe it feels good. And that's how we move on from being hot-headed. That's one of the steps. Number 4 is, what will keeping you cool-headed get you? And this is a good thing to do on paper, to write it down and look at it. So you're actually having it in your face and not in your head. Because a lot of times anger issues is all issues within our head, and we need to get it out. So the next step is get a paper and pen and actually list and write down, what will it actually get you in life if you were to start having a cool head? And when you do this, I want you to really pay attention to where your mind goes. Are you catching yourself trying to write down positive things? That sometimes, are you feeling like you have to force yourself to write positive things because you feel like that's what you're supposed to be doing? If you feel a negative thought pop in your head while you're doing this, for example, why do I need to stop keeping a cool head? And then in your head it pops up, well, so I'm not a pushover anymore. This is something we need to be mindful of, because then you're telling yourself, if you are not hot-headed, then you can become a pushover. So my suggestion to you, when you sit down and you write these steps down on why should I keep a cool head, write it down. And when you feel a negative thought pop up, like what I just said just now, well, I don't want to be a pushover, for example, and you feel it kind of pop up in your head, like your shadow self is going to try to argue with it a little bit, like you're like, oh, I need to keep a cool head so I'm peaceful and I'm confident, or because I don't look bad in front of people, or whatever whatever it is, I feel like it'll bring me healthy relationships. When you hear negative things pop up, write it down in another piece of paper, because that needs to go on your list of false beliefs. And those are things we need to work on and be able to release, so we can actually subconsciously believe our positive reasons on why we need to stay cool-headed. If you do this homework and write the stuff down, and you actually have some self-realizations about yourself, because sometimes we don't realize things until we actually take the time to write it down. And then when we look at it and they're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize this is what's been going on in my head. So if you do this project, please let me know how it goes. Let me know how it's helped you. Let me know if it's helped you with some self-realization. And when you do write this stuff down, my suggestion to you as well is to turn it into some positive affirmations. Like, for example, always start with a positive sentence, not a negative. Like, don't start with the affirmation being, I will not, because that's a double negative, and what you're doing is you're still going to file it as a negative affirmation, and you don't want to file it in your subconscious mind as a negative affirmation. You want to keep it a positive. So usually it's going to start with I am cool-headed, I feel cool-headed, or something, or I am calm when I speak to people. Whatever it is that you choose to do. So when you write it down and you write down the reasons on why you feel you should be cool-headed, find a way to turn it into an affirmation that you can repeat or even write down somewhere and put on your fridge or your mirror where you know you're going to see it subconsciously on a regular basis for a while. My next one is the most common and basic and cliche thing to say is walk away. And I know it basically is. Sometimes if you feel like you're getting hot-headed, you got to be mindful of yourself. You're having a conversation with somebody, you know this person's pissing you off. You know they said something disrespectful, and you know you're getting to the point where your face is warming up, you're gritting your teeth, your body is getting tough and stuff like that. So the next time you get angry, pay attention to the red flags that you're about to flip out. Do you clench your jaw? Does your eyebrows go down? Do your shoulders go up? Do you clench your hands? Pay attention to what you're doing before you blow up when you start to get agitated. So when you feel yourself doing these things, then you could be mindful and say, okay, I'm about to flip out on this person. Then you could actually take the time to know you're about to flip out and then walk away once you feel your hands doing this or your jaw doing this or your eyebrows doing this or your shoulders. I tend to carry a lot of stress in my shoulders, so I do this a lot when I'm upset and I don't realize that I'm doing it, and I have to like put them down. So pay attention to your body when you're upset and you know someone's pissing you off. Just pause for a second and look and scan your body and see what you're doing. So you know that you are about to flip out. So you know that you need to walk out. Once you do this, and that's like your red flag, you know, okay, I need to walk out because I'm about to flip out on this person. So we got to take ownership of that. We need to know ourselves, because we can't expect anyone else to know us. We can't expect anyone else to respect us if we can't respect ourselves enough to know ourselves and know our body enough to know when we are about to flip out. See what I'm saying? So the next one, number 6, is, this is what I learned with really, and I shared this on my gaslighting video and my narcissist video. I made a video on gaslighting, another one on fallacies, and another one on narcissism. So if you have these issues of flipping out, I need you to please check those videos out. I also have one on frenemies, because sometimes, a lot of times, we're flipping out on it all the time because we're hanging out with the wrong people. And they're gaslighting you, and they're disrespecting you. They're pulling out every fallacy they could find in their pocket and throwing it at you. Or passive-aggressive jokes and pretending they're not being passive-aggressive. You know, stuff like that could really irritate us. Crazy making. I made a video on crazy making, how to know, are you really crazy or are you hanging out with a crazy maker? These are things we need to be mindful of. Please look up those videos, crazy making, narcissism, and fallacies. Those are going to let you know what is going on and why you keep feeling this way. Or it's going to help you realize you might be doing it to people, and that's why people keep arguing with you. I mean, to be mindful of that. So this is what I said on my gaslighting and my narcissist video, of when you're dealing in a situation where someone's irritating the crap out of you and you want to freak out and flip out on them, the best thing to do, if you feel like you're in a situation that you can't walk away from and you kind of have to respond and you have to deal, sometimes we're in situations where we kind of have to deal with it. We have to respond. So keep the answers short and minimal. Something I realized about myself, I have a mouth on myself. When I get angry, I will say what needs to be said, plus a whole bunch of extra stuff that I was already holding on to and other extra things I noticed that really doesn't need to be said, but I decided to say it anyways because that person pissed me off. And then you get into a shouting match, and then you're arguing about the extra stuff that you said, and then it just goes on and on and on. I know, I've been there, I've done it myself, I have a history of myself doing it, okay? So the best way to deal with somebody gaslighting you or a narcissist poking at you and messing with you, and you have to deal with it and you can't walk away, no matter how angry you are, I know, trust me, They want you to play the game. Put this in your head. When you're dealing with a gaslighter, you're dealing with a narcissist, they want you to react that way. They want you to keep going and going and going and going and going. They want that. They're energy vampires and they want to feed off you. Admit that to yourself. That way it's easy for you to respond in short sentences. So you are not giving them permission to keep feeding off your energy. Keep it simple. They say something to you, respond in a very short sentence, then keep it moving and move on. I know sometimes when you're angry it's hard to do, but that's the best way to deal with it. Keep it simple, because a narcissist and a person who likes to gaslight will try to get you to speak as much as you can so they can hold everything against you and argue with everything you say. And next thing you know, a 5-minute conversation turns into a 45-minute argument. Okay? Next one is number 6 is watch your tone when you're speaking to somebody. And to respond to when you got to really pay attention when you're talking to people who like to really push your buttons and stuff. And I know when I'm angry, I've learned this the hard way by my mom, who likes to slap mouths when you, my mom will smack you in the mouth if you talk with the tone. So I learned this from my mother, to watch my tone. It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. Which sometimes we could be provoking when we're upset and we don't even realize that we are provoking somebody. I know, I've been there. I get it. That person could be irritating you, and sometimes you're like, I don't even care if I'm provoking the person because I'm pissed at this person. But we need to take ownership of that. We need to be aware of the way our tone is sounding when we speak to somebody, no matter how angry we are. Because the more we watch our tone, the easier it's going to be for the conversation to end and for us to just go our own ways, or for us to be able to solve the issue if we watch the way we're talking to somebody. And sometimes I know it's hard when you're angry, so what I've learned is this, and this is why I'm going to tell you, this is why it's actually really good to do this, because I am starting to learn to master this whole literally dealing with gaslighting people. It's just been a project for me to deal with these people, because they piss me off. So this is what I've learned. When someone's talking to you and they're saying things that you know they're purposely irritating you, I have learned to really pay attention to everything they say to you, and really purposely watch your tone and purposely make sure you respond calmly and respectfully, so you know they cannot gaslight you and say that you didn't. Because that's what they will do. People who like to provoke people will try to make it seem like you're the issue, you're the one with the attitude, you're the one that was disrespectful. And when we're angry and all over the place, we are that person. When we're doing this and freaking, even if they're in the wrong and we're doing that, we lose focus of the conversation. We lose focus of ourselves. And then we don't even realize what we're doing because we're so freaking angry. This way, it can never be brought up in the future. You could actually, when you do this, you could actually stand your ground. Because I've done this with people before, and it works, and it feels good. I'm going to tell you why. When someone tries to argue with you, and you know in your head, I 100% paid attention to everything you said, and I 100% paid attention to everything I said, and I know 100% that I stayed calm when I said it to you, because I 100% made sure I said it calmly, because I watched myself and I paid attention to myself. And I know exactly how you responded was disrespectful. Therefore, when a week or a few days go by and you try to bring up the past, because that's what gaslighting people do, and try to tell me that I said something that I didn't say, I'm going to be like, you know what? I specifically remember I didn't say that. And that way you can't get caught up in the illusion and the chaos they try to bring back to your life. It works. When you argue with somebody and you want to keep a cool head, this is why you need to keep a cool head. Because if you don't, when you're dealing with toxic people, it will be held against you. Not only that day where they will drag you into the argument forever, but it will be brought up to you the next day and the next day and the next day after that, and a week later, maybe even months later, to make you feel guilty, and then pull the guilt shame game to make you keep getting caught up in the argument, caught up over and over and over again. This is why you pay attention to yourself and your tone, and 100% listen to what they're saying and listen to yourself. So you know, not only at that time, you are in control of that conversation. You need to stay control of the conversation and the how you speak and how everything goes back and forth. So you know, you could hold that person 100% for how they reacted, and you know you could hold yourself 100% for how you acted, because you paid attention and you were actually alert and you were actually emotionally stable enough to be alert and to pay attention to what was going on. This is why we need to keep a cool head when we're speaking to people who piss us off, because they will gaslight you and it will be held against you. And then you're getting caught up with it over and over again. And it's tiring. It really is. This is why we keep a cool head. So it's not really about about being too prideful and, oh, I don't want to be cool-headed because that person's gonna walk all over me, blah blah blah. They will actually be able to have more ammo to walk all over you if you're not paying attention, because you got hot-headed and you started acting sloppy and messy when they're speaking to you. This is how you know when the conversation's over and you stayed cool. You have no guilt and shame. You were the cool one and they acted messy. And then that way, you know, whatever happens with the relationship isn't your responsibility, because you know you stayed cool and you know you paid attention. You know, you don't want to walk away with a lot of regrets and stuff. So it really helps. It really does. And it helps dealing with narcissistic, toxic, gaslighting people. So my next one, number 7 is, no, I was already on 7. I am on 8. Number 8 is, I think I actually said that. I said to be aware of yourself and the other person. I already said that. I think I mixed that next step with the last step I said. Number 9 is, you got to take ownership of your anger and your triggers. And I know that one's really hard, because I know I've been there myself. Or I'll be like, well, it's not my fault that person's disrespectful. It's not my fault that person's rude. Well, I'm going to respond because that person was rude to me, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And then we want to blame the other person and say, well, it ain't my fault. I'm going to react. I'm going to treat you the way you treat me. And we need to own up to that, because there's a lot of toxic people out there that honestly want to keep you toxic with them, because misery loves company. There really is. I don't like this whole, there's a meme that's been going around Facebook that I see a lot of people share, and I think it says something like, how you treat me is basically how I'm going to treat you. I'm going to be honest with you, that's toxic. That is completely toxic, and it's not going to do you good at all. If you think like that, it's not going to do you good, and anybody could roll up in your life and treat you anyway and get you caught up in their mess. We don't want that. We don't want to be messy. If you don't want to have a messy life, then don't copy messy people. It's not okay. If you want to have a clean life and have clean energy, we can't be trying to reflect other people's energy back to them, because that's what they want, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's not going to stop. So going back to our shadow self, I mentioned this in my video I actually have 2 videos on multiple videos on the shadow self. I have one video where I explain our shadow self, and another video that's actually on a meditation. So on those videos, I explain that our triggers and our anger is our shadow self. A trigger is your shadow self. When you get angry and you flip out, even if the person was blatantly disrespectful to you, even if you had a 100% right to be angry and they did you dirty and you should be mad at it, and you should be angry, regardless of what it is, when we get over emotional that way and we start flipping out and acting crazy, it's called a trigger. It is. No matter what. Some people think that a trigger is only a trigger when you get angry and you had no right to get angry, and it's because it's based off trauma in the past. A trigger is a trigger, regardless if you're right about it or you're not right about it. So yes, the worst triggers are the triggers when we flip out on somebody and they didn't even do anything, and we just reflected our own issues onto them because we haven't healed something in the past that we went through. Maybe our parent was abusive. Maybe there's something that person said that your dad used to say to you when you were little, and it irks you and pissed you off, even though that person didn't mean it anyway, and you got triggered and started flipping out and freaking out and stuff. So the worst kind of triggers are the ones that we do when clearly nothing even happened and you just flipped out and freaked out and stuff, and then you're like, oh my god, what happened? Triggers. So if you're triggering no matter what the situation is, no matter how wrong the person is, we have to admit to ourselves we are responsible for our own triggers. We are responsible for our own anger. It is our emotions, it is our mind, it is our life, it is our choice to either react or to respond, righteously or sloppily. That belongs to us and us only. And it is our choice to react calmly or crazy. It is our choice to keep associating ourselves with people who drive us crazy, or associate ourselves with people who aren't going to cross boundaries like that. We need to take honor of that. It belongs to us, and we could blame the other person no matter how disrespectful, no matter how much they did us wrong, and they did this and they did that, and while I gave them this and I showed them love and I blah. You know how many people hit me up with these complaints, and I do readings, and all they do is just complain about the other person all the time, over and over and over and over again, and they won't leave the person. It's over and over. Do you know how many times I get readings I hear this all the time? It doesn't matter. It's not the other person. It's not the other person. It's you. It's us. It's our life. It's our choice. So we need to own that. We need to own our anger. We need to own our triggers. If some random person in 7-Eleven says something disrespectful to you and you flip out in the middle of the store, you didn't even know the person. Why'd you take this whole person? That person don't even know you. The person's probably on drugs or something. I live in Seattle. Everybody walking around here is on drugs. Why are you taking it personal for? We need to take ownership of that. If we're taking a lot of things personal, trust me, I've been there, especially if I'm currently going through something. When we're currently going through something, we could be a little more triggery. Obviously, if somebody close to you has passed away, you're going to be a little more triggered than when you've had a really great week and won the lottery. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you're going to be more triggery. If you went and you won the lottery and somebody pisses you off at 7 and standing at 7-Eleven, you ain't going to care. You happy, right? But if your parent died that day and somebody does it, you're going to flip out. This tells me that we are responsible for our triggers. It depends on what state of mind and what energy field that we are in. And we need to own that, no matter how messed up the world is. Number 10 is spiritual advice, because obviously everything I put on my page is spiritual stuff. So number 10 is, a best way to deal with anger before it happens is mindfulness. Number 1 is mindfulness. It's being aware of your body and being aware of your triggers, doing the work, making the sacrifice, or in Ifa we call it making the abo. And some people think that making abo or making offerings always has to be something physical. No, it does not. Sometimes your offerings and sometimes your abo could be learning to kill the rooster, the chicken within yourself. Sometimes the abo or the offering is learning to sacrifice an aspect of yourself that isn't serving you so you can be the best version of yourself, which makes you have to give a lot less abo and offerings when we do that, when we sacrifice things within ourselves, when we sacrifice our own actions to have more positive actions. That's considered a sacrifice. And Ifa, that's also considered an abo. My next one is chants. So if you have a throat chakra issue, if you're mouthing off and stuff, it means basically you have a throat chakra issue. I share a lot of information about chakras on my YouTube channel. And so this is your throat chakra, and I want to give you a chant to help balance your throat chakra. Light blue is actually going to help with your throat energy. If you blow up because you don't say things when you should be saying things, and then a week goes by and you're bitter and angry, and then you blow up later because you should have said it a long time ago, that's called a blocked throat chakra. Or you're a little too mouthy, and every single time something pops in your head, you mouth off about everything. There's a balance there. There's a balance of what we should say and what we shouldn't say. So sometimes we could even go off on people because we heard something that they didn't say. And our ears are actually connected to our throat chakra. So when we balance our throat chakra and we do chants for our throat chakra, and when we wear colors like light blue, it not only helps clear our throat, but it also helps us be able to hear when other people are speaking to us and actually hear what they actually said and not what we think they said, because we're triggery or there's some healing that needs to be done. So the chant for your throat chakra is going to be hum. It's hum. I like to take a deep breath all the way in and then chant all the way out. The longer the hum, the more healing it's going to bring you. And to get you a mala necklace, I'm going to show you what that is really quick. For those of you who do not know what a mala necklace is, a mala necklace has 108 beads on here because it's considered a complete cycle of 108 according to the Buddhists. 108 times, I mean, because you don't have 108 toes to count, you're going to need a mala necklace, okay? You get this at any spiritual shop. You could get them online. You could get them on Amazon, wherever. No, I don't sell these. Maybe one of these days I will be able to sell them. But you could get them anywhere. You basically would say hum 108 times while counting the beads down. The next chant is that'll help you keep a calm head. Because I not only share chakra stuff, I also work with the Neteru. I'm also Kemetic. I practice Kemeticism. So I'm gonna give you a chant for Asar. So there's a chant, Asar, it brings you coolness. He brings you coolness like if you practice Shay Work, he brings you coolness like Obatala, who was my head Orisha, brings coolness to our head, who owns everyone's head. So I'm going to give you a chant that goes to Asar that will actually help cool your head when you're feeling really hot-headed. And not only does it cool your head, but it also helps protect you from any toxic energy. It puts this kind of like white cloud or like auric field around you to keep enemies and negative forces away from you. So you feel you're getting a lot of argument issue. Maybe you have a lot of family issues going on, relationship issues, or maybe you just been really angry and stressed out and you feel like this weird crap been going on. This chant's actually going to help push those negative, irritating energies away from you and help you keep a cool head. So the chant is Aung. It's spelled A-U-N-G. It's Aung. Aung. And again, you're going to do the same thing with the other chant 108 times. And also, I suggest if we're working with light energy and cool energy, a white bath. If you don't know what's in a white bath is basically anything that is white. You could put in white petals, coconut water, coconut milk, or regular milk. And if you want a little sweetness in your life, throw some honey in there. If you need to be more sweet, rub the honey on you. Anything that's going to be white is going to help you take a bath and get your head inside the water because you need to clean your head. Wear more white, cover your head in white when you get out the bath. Wear white for at least 3 days afterwards. Refrain from sex, negative conversations, negative TV, negative music, negative people, gossip, alcohol, drugs. Refrain from it for about 3 days after you take the white bath, or it's almost like you're gonna have to start all over, okay? So that's what I would recommend. This will bring you coolness. This will bring you peace and calmness when you're feeling stressful and you're feeling a little like, white baths always help. My next one is, I practice Shay Work and I am a priestess of Obatala, okay? So if you feel like you're doing all this stuff and you just can't get it right, I get it, I've been there. I've been in a place in my life where I've done so many chants, so many affirmations, so many meditations, and it just, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes we have just so much in us from our past and it doesn't work. I get it, I've been there before. If you're at that point where you feel like you're doing everything you could do and it's just not working and you need something a little more deeper that's going to help really keep this head cool, I do work with the Orisha Obatala. That is my Baba. If you need me to do some work for you and you need me to make some abo or make an offering to Obatala, or do some Shay work for you, or do some Ifa work for you to help cool the energy down off your head, or just to cool the energy down in your life, if there's a lot of chaos going on, I will be able to work with you on that. Please set an appointment with me. We could do a reading and I'll let you know what needs to be done, what Obatala is asking for. He doesn't ask for a lot. He is Fun. He is a lot of white energy. He doesn't ask for a lot. but a little goes a long way with him because he is a follower of Alarisha, and he will bring coolness. If you ask for it, you pray to him, he will give it to you. So if you need that kind of work done, go ahead and message me and let me know. Also, I suggest Ori work. Ori work is basically feeding your own head. If you already practice this kind of practice, if you practice African traditional religion, if you practice Ifa or whatever you're practicing, I would suggest to do Ori work and feed your head white stuff, but always divine first and always talk to a professional first. If you're not familiar, Ori work always helps. If you need someone to talk to about what Ori work is and what I would suggest specifically for your Ori, then please set an appointment with me and I will let you know what your Ori needs and I'll help you do that. Either you could do it at home and I'll tell you what you need to do, or if you're in Washington State, you could come here and I could help feed your Ori or help clean your Ori as well. So my last one after that is, before we go, my last one I want you to really evaluate if you feel hot-headed a lot, because maybe sometimes we need to just admit to ourselves, maybe you're just around toxic people. I mean, honestly, we need to be real with ourselves. It's really hard to be a cool-headed person if you're constantly around somebody that's pushing your buttons all the time. So you need to really evaluate who you're associating with. And I'm not saying to not take ownership, obviously, because I just said to make sure you take ownership. But sometimes we need to stop giving ourselves a hard time. I mean, we are human. We have emotions, you know. We need to learn to stop beating ourselves up. If someone's disrespecting you and being mean to you on a regular basis, you have a right to be angry. You do. I have people come to me all the time in abusive relationships and ask me, am I crazy? If you're being abused and gaslit every single day and someone's constantly putting you down every day and you lose your temper to the point where you have to scream that day and act crazy, you're not crazy. You're just around a crazy maker. You're being abused. Okay? So sometimes you need to evaluate where you're at. Who are you associating yourself with? Are you living with disrespectful people? Is your spouse abusing you? Is your spouse disrespecting you? Are the people you live with just disrespecting you, or it's trying to say passive aggressive jokes knowing it's actually disrespectful jokes, and then when you call it out they act like you're crazy? Really evaluate the people you're surrounded with. When you constantly feel like you're arguing with people, is it really you or is it really them? Honestly, gotta be real with ourselves. I have so many people that come to me to get work done. They need help in their life. They need help with their relationships and their family and stuff going on. And sometimes so many people will like mentally abuse themselves. We actually mentally and emotionally abuse ourselves, which is not good. We do it all the time. We go through things, we flip out, we yell, and then we beat ourselves up for it and say, oh my God, I can't believe I acted this way. Because we have this weird thing that we think we're supposed to be perfect, and if we're not perfect and we never show it and we ever show emotions ever, then we're horrible people. That's not true. We have emotions. So my last step is stop giving yourself a hard time. You know, I'm not saying to just not allow yourself to heal. We should always be taking the steps to heal. But if you're taking the steps to heal and doing whatever it is that you need to do to work on yourself, just to only meditate, just to pray, just to do occult and ask deities to help, to do anything is a lot more than what the rest of the world is doing. A lot of the world is sleeping right now. So stop giving yourself a hard time, honestly. If you really practice mindfulness and you actually question yourself sometimes, a lot of people out there don't. We live in a narcissistic, toxic world. A lot of people don't question themselves at all, like ever, okay? So if you take the time to actually question yourself, you take the time to study, to read, watch videos that help you, watch this video to help you, or anything, you practice any mindfulness of yourself. I mean, stop being so hard on yourself. You're doing what you need to do to help yourself, and that's a step, and it's a big step just to even just do that. Because there's a lot of people out here that don't do nothing, like ever, and think it's weird, but I mean, I can't judge, to each their own, you know? So stop giving yourself a hard time. My last step is stop giving yourself a hard time and really evaluate who you're associating with, because sometimes it's really not even you. Sometimes it's just the people around you. You gotta really ask yourself, honestly, are you a jerk or are you just hanging out with jerks? So that's all I have for you today. My next video is gonna be on addiction, because in the next few weeks, I'm gonna be talking a lot about our Heterisha, Obatala, and our Ori. So I'm gonna be talking about a lot of this type of energy here in the next few weeks. And addiction has a lot to do with an imbalanced Ori. So if you have any addiction issues, we all have addiction issues. We all have our vices. It doesn't always have to be drugs or alcohol. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is something that I have been evaluating within myself recently, because I always do readings on myself. And I used to be a drug user. I'm not a drug user anymore. I don't use drugs. I barely ever drink. The most I drink is when I'm doing ritual work, you know, when doing Shay work or doing spiritual work or Neteru work, because they like rum and, you know, gin and stuff like that. And so I'm actually going to talk about some things in regards to addiction that isn't necessarily always codependency on drugs or alcohol, on substance abuse. Addiction could be, for example, being addicted to wanting to have control over men, for example. I was actually watching this in a movie one time where somebody said, I can remember what I was watching, and the guy said, you have an addiction. He said this in the movie. He said, you have an addiction. She was like, addiction to what? He said, you have an addiction to having power over powerful men. And I was like, ooh, do I have an addiction to having power over powerful men? And it made me question myself, right? These are addictions. It doesn't always have to be about drugs, alcoholism, porn. We can have an addiction within ourselves, like that, for example, and not realize that's what our addiction is. What are you really getting high off of? So my next video, I'm going to talk about that stuff. So if you like that kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I have more love and wisdom to share with you. I also have a Cash App $ Oba Jaguna, because I love money. If you want to give me money, you know, go ahead. If you love my stuff, go ahead and feel free to Cash App me some money, give me some donations, because I love money. Anyways, so I hope everyone's having a cool-headed day. Ankh Ucha Seneb. Namaste. Odabo. Peace.